It was the day she gave up her last meal, and accidentally fed the one man who'd been searching for her for years. The dry harmattan wind swept through the narrow alleyways of Odegun village, coating the rusted zinc rooftops in pale dust. Chickens scurried across the red clay paths, and children's laughter echoed in the distance, faint, like ghosts of a joy Adise Okafor no longer felt. She stood in her one-room home, more a shelter than a house, holding a single bowl of egusi soup, the last remnants of her week's survival. Her stomach growled. Her fingers trembled. And yet, she knew she wouldn't eat it. Not today. There was a knock. Not loud. Not desperate. Just, there. She opened the wooden door slowly, expecting a child, maybe a neighbor in need of salt. But instead, he stood there. A man dressed in old clothes, mud-stained trousers, a threadbare kaftan. His eyes, however, were not dull. They were alive. Watching her. "I haven't eaten in 3 days," he said quietly. "Please. Anything. Even water." She didn't hesitate. She didn't ask his name. She simply handed him the bowl, her last bowl, and stepped back. "Thank you," he whispered. He ate in silence, seated on a stone near her doorway. Every bite seemed sacred. As he finished, he looked up at her again, his eyes glistening with more than gratitude. "What's your name?" he asked. "Adise," she replied. Then his smile faded. He leaned in closer, voice nearly a whisper. "They told me you died, 20 years ago." She blinked. "Excuse me?" He reached into his shirt and pulled out an old, faded photograph. Curled at the edges. She nearly gasped. It was her. But not now. Younger. A child. She stepped back, suddenly cold. "Who are you?" she asked. But he only stood, nodding slowly, as though confirming something he'd long suspected. "I've been sent to bring you home, Adise. Your real home. But before we go, you need to know what was taken from you." And just like that, he walked away into the dust, leaving only the empty bowl behind. Adise stood frozen. She hadn't just fed a stranger. She'd opened the door, to a past she didn't even remember. The photograph haunted her. That night, Adise barely slept. The wind hissed through the gaps in her window like voices whispering in the dark. She lay on the mat, staring at the cracked ceiling, the man's final words circling her mind like vultures over a secret. "They told me you died. Your real home." She had never seen that photograph before in her life, and yet it was her. A younger version, barely 6 years old, dressed in a lace dress she didn't recognize, standing beside a man and woman she couldn't name. A family portrait, but not her family. Not the one she grew up with. At dawn, she wrapped her scarf tight and went into the market. She didn't know the man's name or where he came from. But she remembered one thing, there was a symbol on his shirt pocket, faintly embroidered. A camera lens. And there was only one person in Odegun known for cameras. Baba Olanrawaju. The old photographer whose tiny studio sat between the fabric stalls and the yam shed. When she pushed aside the curtain to enter, the old man looked up from his chair, a half-smoked pipe dangling from his lips. His eyes narrowed. "Adise," he said, slowly. "You've come." She frowned. "You know why?" He nodded once, as though it had been a matter of time. "You saw him, didn't you? The man from the train station. He's back." Adise's heart skipped. "You know him?" Baba leaned forward, reaching under the table. He pulled out an old tin box, rusted shut on one side. Inside, photographs. Dozens. Hundreds. He placed 3 on the table. All showed the same child, Adise. In different clothes. Different places. Holding hands with a woman in a galley. A man with a military uniform. A younger boy who looked almost like her. She backed away. This is not possible. You were born in Abuja, he said gently. To a diplomat and a journalist. They died in a fire, or so the world was told. Adiz clutched the table. My mother raised me here. In poverty. She told me. That woman is not your mother, child. Baba's voice cracked, not with drama, but with truth. I was paid to keep the photos hidden. To never tell you. But the man who came yesterday, his name is Musa Ibrahim. He was your father's aide. He disappeared the night of the fire. Why now? She whispered. Why is he back after all these years? Baba Olenrawaju sighed, eyes tired. Because, Adiz, someone just reopened the case of your parents' death. And you are the only living heir to everything they left behind. Land. Secrets. And enemies. He pushed one last photograph across the table. It showed her father, smiling. Behind him, in the shadows, a man with a scarred face. Barely visible. Find Musa again, Baba said. He's the only one who can show you who really tried to erase your life. At that moment, a sharp whistle echoed outside. Baba froze. No one knows you're here, right? She shook her head. But deep in her stomach, a terrible feeling began to grow. Because across the street, in the crowd, a man with a scarred face had just turned his eyes toward the photo studio. And started walking straight toward it. The curtain swayed softly behind her, brushing the back of her neck like a ghost's hand. Baba Olenrawaju moved faster than she thought his bones could, snatching the photos off the table and shoving them back into the rusted box. He pointed to the back of the studio. Behind the curtain. Now. Adiz ducked through just as the front flap of the studio burst open. Footsteps. Heavy. Intentional. She pressed her back against the mud wall, every breath trembling in her chest. From the sliver in the curtain, she could see him, the scarred man. His face twisted, the mark pulling his left cheek into a permanent sneer. He had eyes that scanned without blinking, like a vulture that didn't need to hunt, it already knew who would die next. Old man, the stranger said. I'm looking for someone. Baba's voice didn't shake. Aren't we all? She came here. This morning. Young woman. Ankara scarf. Light eyes. I'm blind in one eye, Baba replied, puffing on his pipe. Colors don't speak to me anymore. The scarred man chuckled. But it wasn't laughter. It was a warning. She doesn't belong here, he said. You know it. I know it. Her name shouldn't exist. Adiz clenched her fists. Her name. Her existence. The man stepped closer to the photo wall, fingering the frames like memories he'd rather erase. Then, he stopped. There was a photo half hidden behind others. A baby on a woman's lap. The woman in the galley. The man in military uniform. The family. His expression shifted, a flicker of something dark and old rising behind his eyes. I'll find her, he whispered. And when I do, there won't be a second fire. He turned and left. Silence returned, but it was sharp now, like broken glass on a tiled floor. Baba didn't move until the stranger's footsteps had long faded. When he did, his hands shook as he opened a secret compartment in the wall and handed Adiz a bundle wrapped in faded cloth. She opened it. A passport. A faded birth certificate. A tiny carved pendant, the kind worn by only one tribe, far from Odegun. And inside the cloth, a letter. Old, creased, and unopened. To Adiz if she ever finds the truth. I've kept this for over 20 years, Baba whispered. Your mother gave it to me, 2 days before the fire. Adiz couldn't breathe. She tore the envelope open. Inside, in looping handwriting. If you are reading this, it means the lie is crumbling. Your name is not Adiz Okafor. You were born Adiz Chinyur Musa. You were hidden, not abandoned. And those who killed us will come for you next. At the bottom, a name she didn't know. A name that chilled her more than the scarred man. General Khalifa Dinladi. Baba spoke again, voice dry. Your father was set to testify against him. But the fire came first. Adiz stood. Something had shifted in her. She wasn't just a poor girl anymore. She was a survivor of a stolen legacy. And someone still wanted her gone. As the sun rose behind the rusted rooftops of Otagun, she made a silent vow. She would not run. She would not vanish. She would uncover everything. Even if it burned the country down again. By dusk, she was gone. No goodbyes. No trail. Just a whispered prayer over Baba Olanrawaj's doorstep and a tight grip on the pendant tied beneath her blouse. The old man had slipped her a single name before she left. Isaiah Eakin, a former investigative journalist who once worked alongside her mother before the fire that silenced everything. The last Isaiah was heard from, he was hiding in the plateau city of Jos, far from Otagun, and even farther from General Dinladi's reach. Or so it was believed. The train was slow, coughing along the tracks like an old animal refusing to die. Adiz sat in the third-class cabin, squeezed between crates of tomatoes and snoring travelers, her eyes fixed on the rolling plains beyond the dusty window. Every bump in the track felt like a heartbeat. Every stop, a potential end. But it wasn't the fellow passengers she feared. It was the quiet man in the suit 2 rows down. He hadn't moved once in 6 hours. No food. No sleep. No blinking. Just a small radio in his coat pocket, clicking softly every hour like a secret signal. When the train jerked at a sudden stop near a forgotten station, the man finally stood. So did Adiz. She moved quickly, blending into a group of women carrying baskets, slipping onto the platform just before the train hissed its way forward again. She didn't look back. Outside, night had fallen with teeth. She walked for an hour along the dirt road until she reached a small canteen lit by a single flickering bulb. As she stepped inside, the old woman behind the counter looked up, and froze. You must be her, the woman whispered. Adiz's heart thumped. I'm looking for Isaiah Eakin. The woman said nothing. Just pointed to a narrow door at the back. Adiz pushed it open. It was a dark room, lined with newsprint. Clippings. Notes. Photographs connected by strings like a spider's web. In the center, a man sat with his back to her, scribbling something under lamplight. When he turned, her breath caught. One eye was covered by a cloth bandage. His face was weathered by sun and sorrow. But there was strength still. Anger, yes, but also memory. You're her, he said. Chinyur's daughter. I'd know those eyes anywhere. You knew my mother. I fought beside her. He stood, limping toward a shelf, and pulled down a box marked Ash Case 13D. Inside, a flash drive, a dog tag, a photo of her parents standing with a man whose face was blacked out. Scratched through. She discovered something before she died, Isaiah said. Something about General Dinladi. Something not even the courts would touch. What was it? She asked. But before he could answer, the wall exploded. The blast knocked her flat, ears ringing, vision white. She opened her eyes to smoke and screams. Isaiah was on the floor, blood on his temple. Still breathing, barely. A silhouette stepped through the hole in the wall. Not the scarred man. Someone taller. Younger. Dressed in all black, holding something glowing in his hand, a small device with a blinking red light. He didn't speak. He pressed the button. And all the files, the clippings, the evidence, the proof, burst into flame. Adiz screamed, throwing herself toward the fire, but hands grabbed her, pulled her away. From the smoke, Isaiah coughed out 4 words before losing consciousness. Find Musa. In Sokoto. And then, darkness. Adiz was alone again. But this time, the fire wasn't in a house from her past. It was in her present, burning away every trace of truth. And whoever was chasing her had just declared war. The road to Sokoto was not a road, it was a test. Adis traveled in shadows now. No trains. No open vehicles. Only cargo trucks and footpaths through remote hamlets where names meant nothing, and silence was the only form of safety. She changed scarves, accents, even the way she walked. She became nobody. But her fire burned hotter with each mile. Isaiah had nearly died for her. Baba had risked everything. The past had already stolen her blood. She would not let it steal her truth. She arrived in Sokoto under the cloak of dawn, the call to prayer echoing from minarets across the ancient city. It was here, Isaiah said, that Musa Ibrahim had gone underground, hiding not from the government, but from something older, quieter, and far more dangerous. She headed straight to the mosque that sat between two alleys in the old quarter. Not grand. Not gold-domed. Just stone, faded blue tiles, and a courtyard full of worn slippers. She waited. Hours passed. At noon, an old cleric finally approached her. "You are the girl from Otagun," he said. She stiffened. "How do you know?" "Because he prays for you." He led her behind the mosque, down a hidden staircase that spiraled into earth. At the bottom, a narrow corridor, torchlit and heavy with dust. And at its end, a door of thick wood, iron bolts across it. The cleric unlocked it slowly. Musa Ibrahim sat inside. But he was not the man she remembered. His beard had grown, his cheeks were sunken, his left hand chained to the wall. He looked up when she entered, blinking as if seeing sunlight for the first time in years. "Adis," he said softly, her name like a forgotten hymn. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Why are you in chains?" He laughed, a low, bitter sound. "Because I refuse to betray your father." She knelt before him, her voice sharp. "Then tell me what happened. Why did they kill him?" Musa leaned forward, his voice a whisper. "Because he had a list of names. Men who profited from the war in the north. Men who orchestrated the village massacres, and made it look like tribal conflict." Adis's heart thudded. Dunladi was just one of them. The real mastermind is above him. An international contractor. Hidden behind charities. He funded the fire that killed your parents, and made it look accidental. Musa reached under the mat he sat on, pulling out a worn book. Inside, taped between its pages, a second flash drive. "This is the last copy," he said. "Encrypted. Only your father's pendant can unlock it." Adis pulled the carved pendant from around her neck. "This? It's not a symbol," he said. "It's a key." But before she could ask more, the door behind her blew open. Gunshots. Screams. The cleric fell without a sound. Men in black swarmed the room. Adis backed up, dragging Musa behind the wooden desk, bullets shattering stone all around them. One man charged, she knocked him cold with a brick. Another fell to a hidden tripwire Musa had rigged years ago. But there were too many. Musa shoved the drive into her hand. "Run. No. Run." She ran. Through the tunnels. Through the city. Out into the blinding sun, her lungs burning. Behind her, the mosque burned. Musa, gone. But the flash drive was warm in her hand. Inside it, the names. The map. The evidence. And something she didn't expect. A bank account number. With her mother's initials. And a transfer made just last week. From Switzerland. To Nigeria. In her name. Adis couldn't stop shaking. The cybercafe in the outskirts of Sokoto was silent, except for the buzz of old fans and the dull tapping of her fingers against the keyboard. The drive, Musa's final gift, was plugged into the computer. The pendant fit perfectly into the small keyhole embedded in the casing, like it had waited all these years to come alive. Files exploded onto the screen. Dozens. She clicked on the folder titled, ASH13, Echo Protocol. It was no longer just about her parents. This was a machine. A network of generals, businessmen, foreign agents, NGO fronts, all connected through contracts, arms deals, and orchestrated chaos across Africa. Every riot. Every warlord. Every drought mismanaged. Every orphanage donation that never reached children, all accounted for. And then the transaction logs appeared. The bank. The one that had sent money last week in her name. Her breath caught as she read the most recent entry. Beneficiary, Adis Chinyere Musa. Amount, 38 million Nigerian nairas. Memo, Asset Reinstatement, Tier 7 Air. Initiated by, Yaboa Foundation, Lagos Branch. Adis leaned back. She had never heard of the Yaboa Foundation. Until she opened another folder. Inside, photos of an elegant office in Victoria Island, Lagos. Yaboa Foundation, humanitarian arm of a multinational pharmaceutical company. But it was the CEO's picture that made her stomach twist. Same scarred face. No longer in shadows. Wearing a suit. Smiling for the press. Chief Emito Dinladi. General Dinladi's son. The new face. The corporate version of his father's terror. And then, a noise behind her. A soft cough. She turned. A man in uniform stood at the cafe entrance, blocking the exit. Another stepped out from the shadows. Her instincts screamed. She slammed the laptop shut, grabbed the flash drive, and ran through the back door. Alleys blurred. Horns honked. She disappeared into the chaos of the market, her scarf pulled tight, her pulse hammering. But she was being followed. Not by one man. By three. She ducked into a textile shop. The woman behind the counter locked eyes with her, recognized her fear, and without a word lifted a curtain to the back. Inside, a boy. Not older than 10. Holding a phone. "You're her," he said. "The fire lady." "What?" "That's what they call you on the radio. They say you're wanted. Dangerous. But Mama says you're a story they tried to bury." He handed her the phone. The screen showed a live news broadcast. Breaking, fugitive impersonator seizes inheritance. Daughter of alleged war criminal on the run. Her photo. Splashed across every station. Twisted truth. Poison dressed as news. She realized what the money meant. It wasn't a gift. It was a trap. To make it look like she'd been part of it all along. Suddenly, the boy's mother burst in. "You must go," she said. "There's someone who can help you. He's in Lagos. He's been waiting." "Who?" She handed Adis a card. Plain. Clean. Just one name. Oba Folarin. And beneath it, scribbled in rushed handwriting. "The crown sleeps until the rightful wakes it." Adis didn't understand. But something told her. This wasn't just about evidence anymore. This was about power. Real, dangerous, hidden power. And she was standing in the center of the storm. The bus ride into Lagos was quiet. Too quiet. The sprawling city greeted her with its usual contradictions, opulence choking poverty, glass towers beside crumbling slums, joy blasted from radios beside muffled cries in alleyways. But Adis no longer saw the city like a refugee. She was not lost anymore. She was hunting. The card was her only clue, Oba Folarin. She expected an elder, a recluse, maybe a former politician hiding behind faded glory. What she found instead, was a kingdom. Not one of gold or marble, but of secrets. The address on the card led her to Makoko, the floating shantytown Lagos pretended didn't exist. She walked over swaying wooden planks and past canoes filled with fishermen and firewood. Then came a boat. A silent man in a red cap waited for her, as if she'd been expected. No words. They glided across the lagoon until they reached a larger structure, hidden, surrounded by thick reeds and bamboo. Inside, carved from palm wood and iron, stood a throne. And upon it, a man dressed in a white flowing agbada, eyes bright, beard silver, posture impossibly straight. Oba Folarin. But not a king of the past. A king underground. "You're late, child," he said without a smile. "I've waited 27 years. Adiz remained standing. "My father, did you know him?" Folarin nodded once. "Chijioke Musa was my friend. But also my heir. He was meant to take over the legacy hidden behind the Nigerian Republic, the crown that never died." He gestured to a wall behind him, covered in emblems and coats of arms long erased from history books. "We were kings once, before colonizers turned our bloodlines into parliamentary jokes. But your father, your mother, they tried to restore balance. Real power. Not through thrones, but through truth." Adiz stepped forward. "They died for it." Folarin's eyes hardened. "No. They were eliminated because they discovered the final vault, a digital library of testimonies, voice recordings, videos, tying world powers to African destabilization." Her hand gripped the flash drive tighter. "I have part of it." He smiled, barely. "You have the key. I have the lock." Suddenly, from a panel in the floor, an old woman rose, hunched, silent, carrying a box. Inside, a mirror. But it was no ordinary mirror. As Adiz looked into it, the reflection shifted. Her face was replaced by footage, a hidden video, time-stamped 27 years ago. Her father. Speaking. "If this message is ever played, then I am dead. And my daughter is watching. Adiz, you are more than a survivor. You are the last voice they cannot silence. Inside this vault is every sin they've tried to bury. You must open it. Let the world see." She turned to Folarin. "Where is the vault?" Before he could answer, the sky outside erupted. Gunfire. Explosions. The hut trembled as masked men burst in from the shadows. The scarred man. Leading them. He pointed at Adiz. "She has the drive. Kill the rest." Folarin shouted something in Yoruba, and the floor beneath her collapsed. Water. Darkness. Hands grabbed her, pulled her through a secret tunnel beneath the lagoon. She gasped for air as they emerged on the other side of the canal, gunfire still echoing behind her. The boatman was waiting. He pressed something into her hand. A USB pendant, identical to hers, but gold. "She must go," he told the others. "She is the one." Adiz stared at the golden drive in her palm. 2 keys now. And only one place left where they could be used. The vault. Hidden beneath Aso Rock. The seat of the nation's power. And the nation's greatest lie. Rain fell over Abuja like a baptism. The city glittered in the night, unaware that history was unraveling beneath its polished surface. Cars honked, officials dined in golden halls, and cameras rolled lies on every screen, but deep beneath Aso Rock, a silence waited. Heavy. Ancient. Sealed for decades. Adiz walked through the underground corridor, flanked by Folarin's most trusted few, men and women of no titles but infinite memory. Behind them, the shadows of war followed. Ahead, the heart of the machine. The vault. They had found the access point hidden behind the abandoned diplomatic archives, untouched since the military transition of 1999. Dust-coated old plaques. Names no longer spoken in public still lingered here like ghosts: Dinladi, Yaboa, Musa. The door was biometric. She stepped forward, heart pounding, and lifted the two pendants, hers and the golden twin, fitting them into twin sockets shaped like the adinkra for truth. A deep mechanical hum echoed through the walls. The door groaned. Opened. The room inside was no larger than a chapel, and just as sacred. A single table. A single screen. A mainframe humming with forgotten power. Adiz approached and pressed her palm to the scanner. Access granted, Adiz Chinyur Musa. Welcome, heir. The screen bloomed to life. Video files. Audio logs. Contracts. Confessions. Everything her parents had died to protect. Every name that wore a suit on stage but signed death orders in shadows. Every mouth that smiled in public while bleeding the continent dry in private. She uploaded it all to a satellite drive. And clicked Release to Public Channel. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then chaos. Every phone in the country buzzed. Every news feed was hijacked. Every lie cracked open like an egg. There was Dunladi, boasting about accidents. There were ministers laughing over famine budgets. Foreign agents negotiating child soldier routes like commodities. The world watched. The world burned. But Adiz stood still, inside the vault, as everything she had suffered, lost, survived, exploded into truth. In the weeks that followed, arrests shook parliaments. Courtrooms overflowed. Whistleblowers came out of hiding. A documentary titled The Fire That Survived swept across the globe. And in Otagun, where it all began, a new school was built, named after Chinyur and Chijiok Musa. Adiz did not return to the village. Instead, she vanished. Some say she became a ghost, watching silently as the empire rebuilt itself. Others say she lives under a different name, running a foundation for truth seekers. But those who truly know she is not gone. She is waiting. Because the fire never dies. It only sleeps. And she is its keeper. If this story touched you, shocked you, or simply kept you on the edge of your seat, then don't wait. Subscribe now to our YouTube channel. This is where stories come to life, with powerful visuals, captivating voices, and twists you won't see anywhere else. And now, it's your turn. We really want to hear your thoughts. Which scene in this story moved you the most? Do you think Adiz should return and publicly confront those who remain in power? Do you think the fire she has rekindled, can it really change the world? Say it in the comments or in a message. And most importantly, don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. Your support inspires us to create even greater things.